Very good afternoon to all of you. I request all dignitaries to wait 5 more minutes. Some more participants yet to join, so I request all the dignitaries to wait for 5 more minutes. We'll start the program sharply by 3:05 p.m. Yes. Yes, Professor, please tell me.
Like the last doctor is in. She has been entering everything, but still she cannot be not been able to connect herself.
Okay, it's okay, no problem. Then let us start the program, right?
What shall we do? Yes.
Yeah, no, I'll
And
take
she
the
has been trying.
responsibility. We will begin the.
Yeah, maybe she can join. Anyway, right.
No issue. No issue. Uh,
Time reasons, I
Very good
think we
afternoon to.
sort of inconvenience.
Yeah, it's okay, no problem. Very good afternoon to all the participants. Let's start the program with the permission of all the panelists. A warm welcome to all of you. This is the webinar on a life cycle approach to a child-centric disaster risk reduction, being organized by Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center, National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, in association with a Sikkim Law College, Gangtok. And we all know that due to this climate change, the intensity and frequency of disasters are being increased. At the same time, there is a growing consensus that the vulnerabilities that can configure disaster risk can be best addressed if situation analysis for the development program and formulation considers age and gender related needs, capacities, and vulnerabilities that change as children grow. Starting from the prenatal stage, with the need of care, protection, and the scale of dependency of children on duty bearers like parents, guardians, community, government, etc. for survival, growth of development varies. So the services rendered by the duty bearers and the institutions are variably at risk being eroded during the disaster and complex emergencies. So with this background, this program is considering that the impact of disaster on children, the webinar on a life cycle approach to child-centric DRR is scheduled to build the capacities of stakeholders on life cycle approach for child-centric DRR. And the objectives of the program is to discuss the disaster impact on children and how the children are vulnerable in changing disaster and climate situation. And the objective of this program is also to discuss about the time critical services and care as well as effective practices that can be rendered in order to address the children's needs and rights. So with this brief background about this program, now I may invite Dr. Sarabjit Singh Shota, who is a emergency disaster risk reduction section specialist, Unicef. I request you to deliver your opening remarks. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Balu. How do I present I want to share my file, but I am not allowed to share the file.
Yeah, I'll make you as a presenter. Yes. Now you are the presenter. You can share your files.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is it visible now?
Yes, your part.
Okay, excellent. First of all, welcome to the Law College colleagues in Sikkim, and thank you so much to the National Institute of Disaster Management. I trust each one of you agree with me that life cycle approach to development and risk management is not a new concept at all. You would see life cycle approach is completely driving the census of India. So you see that the entire census is the information is collected along the age disaggregation. but it also provides gender disaggregated data. So we'll later on discuss why age and gender. So, but certainly the the idea of life cycle approach is fully integrated in Government of India's planning and particularly development planning. You see, all the flagship programs are aligned to the life cycle approach. Maybe Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, maybe integrated child development scheme where you have Anganwadis, or you would have integrated child protection scheme, which is more sort of aimed at adolescents, whereas ICDS is aimed at the under five children, children under the age of 5 years. So Sarva Shiksha, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan is more sort of for elementary education. Just a minute, give me a second to close my door. Yeah, there was some noise, some dogs were barking. So sorry about that. But are you with me on this that disaster risk management policies and practices? I mean, we're still sort of starting to recognize that we need to go with a child's life cycle approach. And congratulations to NIDM and Ministry of Home Affairs to we've been partnering with NIDM, MHA for past 2-3 years, and this is the year 3, wherein Dr. Balu and his colleagues in the South Center of NIDM are leading on the child-centered disaster risk reduction. So within the government of India system, it's getting mainstream. But we're still far away from getting the disaster risk management policies and practices aligned to the life cycle approach. So today, I thought I should share with you a tool. Yeah, because we have partnered with a law college in Sikkim. So I thought maybe there'll be a lot of students who will be interested to take it forward, and as well as faculty from the law college. So I'm going to share one tool with you in which we do vulnerability and capacity analysis along the life cycle approach. Partly because disasters don't impact everyone in the same way. Rather, they impact different people differently. Hence, in emergency planning, it is very important that we pay special attention to these aspects, and ensure that the services, the response, and the preparedness is aligned to the different life phases. If a child is newborn, then their needs are very different compared to those who are adolescents, and their vulnerabilities and capacities are also equally different. So that's how we would start appreciating the age and gender differentiations. So that's the idea of life cycle approach. The tool is attached here as a Word file, which you can click on it and go into it. But today I'm not going to go directly into the tools, but suggest that you all take it up in your as per your convenience, and probably also integrate it into your curriculum in your law college, as well as in the NIDM South Center. So what are we after when we want to drive the child-centered DRR and disaster risk reduction? So we start with understanding vulnerabilities and capacities along these sort of 4 or 5 big segments of age. So the first 1,000 days is the most vulnerable part of our life. First 1,000 days starts from the conception. That's the 9 months of conception plus the rest of it. So the first 1,000 days bring some very, as Dr. Balu was mentioning, some very time-critical service needs. So the services which are required during this phase of the life are very, very time-critical. And also, if people get those services in time, adequate to the standards, then the value of these services is delivered all throughout the life of a child, of a person. The immunization which I received during my first a year or so during my childhood, I'm still enjoying the benefits of that. So that's the beauty of life cycle approach. If the life cycle approach works, the whole life gets benefit. Then the next phase is under 5. That's when children are developing their cognitive skills, and so a lot of programs associated with Anganwadi systems and so would attempt on nutrition and developing children's cognitive skills. And the third is the middle childhood, where 6 years to 14 odd years. So that's the middle childhood. That's when the development phase is going on. There's a sense of inquiry, and hence education becomes very important. That's when the schooling starts. And the fourth is the adolescence phase, which intersects with the middle childhood and adolescence from 12 to 18. So under 18 years is the child. So up to 18 years is the age of child. So that's as per Convention of Child Rights. The child is someone who is under the age of 18 years. Now, if we understand the vulnerabilities and capacities along these 4 or 5 age segments, then we can start understanding the rest of it as social norms. So what are the socially constructed bottlenecks and barriers to development of a child, or safety and security of a child? For example, the preference for boy child over girl child. It skews the sex ratio and it is a big problem in the northern part of the country, but not only north. Now even states such as Gujarat and other richer states are sort of facing this problem. Then of course, when the discrimination starts in the fetus, the discrimination continues across the whole life cycle. Women would always remain, if a society is discriminating the girl child, then women would have lesser rights, and then her compromise of her rights would continue through her life cycle. So that's an important thing to understand in the life cycle approach. Then once we've understood this, then we can plan for upholding rights of children, particularly during the periods of shocks and stresses. That's disasters, and emergencies. So when there are shocks and stresses, there is a chance that school may not work, or they may not get access to their immunization as per schedule. Now that's a derogation of child rights. We do not want that. We want continuity of services so that their rights are during emergencies are met. So that's, and finally, I think we have to get into the delivery. And delivery, for that, we need to have resilient and responsive development programming and design. So we got to build our facilities, our services, which are resilient and disaster resilient. And always remember that success is always dependent on coordination. Any sectoral results would be dependent on what happens in the other sectors. For example, right now there's a pandemic going on. The entire health system is overwhelmed, but majority of the response to the pandemic is hand washing, is social distancing, which is not a health response, which is a environmental sanitation response. So the other sectors have to perform so that the health sector can take care of the health emergency. Apart from that, it's very important that child-centered DRR is not a new program. It is about delivering our old programs, social protection programs, various services for children in an adaptive manner. We're not saying that start a new program. We're saying that deliver, plan, deliver, design the services in a way they adapt to the local risk context, including the longer term issues like such as climate change. And finally, with all this, we should be advocating for recognizing children as for their inclusion in the policies and practices. So that's the agenda of CCDRR, and this tool will help you sort of practice it and ensure that we plan for continuity of services. Continuity of services is the number one priority for child-centered DRR with a life cycle approach. So we will be able to figure out which services need to continue, which services need to have additional capacity to deliver transitional services, and so on and so forth. And we should not only be operational during emergencies, but we also need to be investing in resilience of the critical infrastructure, which is for children. As I said earlier, you cannot deliver results without coordination. So this tool particularly helps you understand who are the stakeholders and whom do we need to partner with, whom do we need to coordinate with. So that's important. I've included one standards here, what we call core commitment for children in humanitarian action. You can download from the link given here. Essentially, the entire resilience agenda can be delivered through these referring to the child core commitments for children. Last 2 points. Without communication, all our services will not bear all the fruits which we want, or we will remain short of what we want to achieve. Hence, civic engagement or community engagement for social behavior change and communication programming that will get clarified by use of this tool, that who needs to be reached with what information. That's an important issue, particularly for children and for people living with risk. And final point, I would suggest that when you use this tool, think of what feedback loops can we build. So is there a possibility of community feedback mechanism around the benchmarks of service delivery? So you want continuity of services, and CCCs will tell you what benchmarks you need to achieve. But can the community give us feedback? Is it working? Is it not working? So children, because their priorities are always lost in planning, in design, and in delivery of services. And more than often, it's the adult-centered response to emergencies. We can build such community mechanisms, feedback mechanisms, which can help bring focus on children's needs. So I'll stop here, Dr. Balu, and would be happy to continue and engage with the group. And over to you for further deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Am I audible? Thank you, Mr. Sadis. Now I will invite Dr. Desang, Principal, Government Sikkim Law College, to deliver an inaugural address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you
Dr.
very
Desang,
much. I think, yes.
I think you have a poor signal. Voice is breaking.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful to the NDIM and Unicef chapter of India for collaborating. And this year we have been quite busy holding us, and we are not free. First of all, I want to say in my inaugural address is that they say that child is the father of man. That means that we take care of the child because they are the future of the country, the coming generation, the future prosperity and peace and development depends upon the type of build in this situation. Talking in the context of the Indian Constitution, there is a very clear demarcation in both the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy that the child has to be handled with a positive notion so that their early development is not harmed, which might affect the later while they are on the way to be a full grown up adult. So mostly the basic things that, or the basic issues that has been addressed by the Constitution, which is also the mother of all laws of our country, which is a democratic one. There we have seen that basic amenities, like I said, like I was going to say, regarding education has been properly addressed by the government of India through its legislations. Like, for example, the Right to Education Act. Further, we have to see various other schemes of the government regarding health, nourishment, and so on and so forth. So we have to see the Constitution itself spells out clearly under Article 15(3) that special laws can be made for the children in addition to women. As we know that historically India is or was an oppressed country due to various foreign rules, but still we find that there are certain sections of the society, more broadly as gender of the female kind, and less or rather more vulnerable sections of the society being the children. The children are sometimes left, once being from the oppressed classes, like being the female kind, and from the weaker sections of the society, plus they themselves being children. But whereas we know that they are to be handled more than double than as adults are being handled, but laws are there, applications are taking, implementations are taking place, various schemes, various kind of plans have been worked out for nourishment and all those kind of things. But sadly, we are falling back on funding various kind of projects, various kind of schemes and all. As we know that the children mostly are not being considered, as they say, in political arenas by the very reason that they are not of voting age. As we and earlier Sri Singh has already said that child means below the age of 18. That means who has not completed the age of 18, and that also affects their voting. That is also politically they are said to be not. But the country is trying to catch up with the various developing countries, rather developed countries, in providing the child rights since the early 90s. Once they adopted the Convention on Protection of Child and all, we have got child protection committees, the Commission on Child Rights, and all those kind of things. We have got even the uh, juvenile delinquency, like criminal laws for the child has been moderated, they have been diluted, keeping in mind the proper development of their minds and all. So these are the things. Further, you know that Article 21A was the amendment of the Constitution, the 86th Amendment of Constitution 2002, which has actually inserted, which gives free and compulsory education from 6 to 14. And further, state policy, specifically Article 45, is very clear that the state has to provide childcare and education up to the age of 16, so that from the time of birth till 14, education will be free and compulsory in the coming years. And so in the nourishment side, we have already seen, due to the aftermath of the right to education, fundamental right to education, the legislation of the Right to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009, which was brought into effect from the 1st of April 2010. Therein lies a lot of provisions which help a child not only being properly educated basically, but also to be nourished with the midday meals and other amenities and other facilities. So for going further, because there are more experienced and well in touch with the realities on the ground, because we are 100 crore and mostly the backing of the like the Unicef and the other bodies of the UN have been very, very helpful in per government to take care of child in the early period of development. And further, here the NDIM has been very handy, and they are trying to find out, maybe this is an initiative. And the ND Act, the Disaster Management Act of 2005 is very, very handy. A perfect example is the recent pandemic. It was said to be an epidemic, but it was handled by the disaster management authorities, which was not foreseen a few years back. So India is always ready with the laws. The only problem is that we sometimes falling back on the enforcement tribe. Saying this, I would like to end my short speech here. Thank you very much. And thank you once again to NDIM and the UNICEF.
Thank you, Dr. Sivang, for sharing the legal provision for the child care and the services rendered to the children. And you also talked about the fundamental rights which is being given to the child. And I also thank Mr. Sabjit for setting a background and agenda for today's discussion. And he was discussing about the vulnerabilities and capacities of children and the rights associated with the child. So now I may invite Mr. Simachal, who is now I may invite Mr. Simachal Patnaik, who is a program officer, Risk and Resilience, Unicef, West Bengal, to discuss about the life cycle approach and child-centric DRR. Let me open your presentation, sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Balu. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you. I hope you are sharing my presentation. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Uh,
fine. Yes, that's right.
yes, sir. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Good afternoon, all the participants, all the delegates who are present in this webinar. This is very much important topic we are going to discuss, and even my colleague from Delhi, Mr. Sarojit Sahota, has already explained the life cycle approach of the DRR and the child-centric DRR. I would just specifically highlight on certain issues. Then I have prepared 5 slides, which I will explain that how we work in the field for the child-centric DRR approach. I think that will be helpful for all the participants to understand when we say about child-centric DRR, what does it mean? Uh, See, DRR in general, when we speak, so it's about how we take actions in different sectors and different areas to reduce the disaster risk. But when we add the child-centric approach, so it is mainly focusing the children. So not only the children, also the sectors which are specifically help in development of the children. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So here I would like to highlight why child-centered DRR. Already it is explained that we need to focus on the children because why? Because they constitute a significant portion of the total population. You consider any state or any nation or at any level, you will find children are the biggest portion of the total entire population. That means when any disaster strikes, so it will have impact greatly on the children. Number one. Number two, when we consider the most vulnerable group, then children also included in that group. Why? Because they have limited power, limited accessibility to certain services and facilities, and they have limitations that they actually cannot adjust to all the situations, so they need help. So that's why they are the most vulnerable group. So in a disaster context, we need to actually consider that they are getting proper care and facilities. Then the third point is children participation is critical in the DRR planning. Why it is critical? Because unless we involve the children in the DRR process, how we can know what are the issues no coming up during any disaster situation, or when we are thinking about sometimes the long term approach. So if we involve children, then they can actually identify certain issues which they face, which they feel that they should be part of that. Let me give you one example. When we are talking about the school infrastructure, and we are talking about resilient school infrastructure, but if we do not consider the concerns about the children, that what are the problems they are facing in their schools, what are the challenges they may face during a disaster situation. So unless until we realize it from the children's mouth or from their level, so it will really be difficult to plan certain things which actually help them. So that's why their participation, their understanding about the issues is very much important. So that is one of the reason. Second, fourth is children are the future. Already one of our dignitary mentioned about it. They are the future. So they will become a scientist, maybe an engineer, and they need to know from their childhood that what we mean by disaster, how should we reduce the risk. So that knowledge part need to be developed from the beginning. They need to be informed about all those actions which we are taking to reduce the disaster risk. So that's why they need to be considered in the DRR process. And the last, not the least, because I have pointed these five issues, but there may be some other issues where we think the child-centric approach should be there in the DRR. The last is the sectors contributing, and this is the most important point, that which are those sectors which are contributing for the well-being and development of the children. So whether those sectors are considering the disaster risk, whether their plan of actions are considering all those disaster risk or not. If not, then there will be no problem in delivering the services or making the services infrastructure resilient. So that's why we need to identify which are those sectors, which are those areas where we need to concentrate for doing the child-centric DRR approach. Now coming to the topic, which is talking about the life cycle approach for child-centric disaster risk reduction. When we add the word child-centric, that means we need to consider from the life cycle approach. That means from they come to the earth, when they born, and how they survive throughout their life, and during that process, which are the areas which actually help them to grow up. So whether we are considering those areas while planning for the DRR or not, that we need to also check. So a child can be, the life cycle starts when a mother gets pregnant, and during that phase, the mother need to get utmost care and support. And if that is compromised due to any action or any natural disaster, then the entire growth and development of the child is compromised. So that's why from the beginning, how we are considering the DRR actions to make it child-centric. So that's why you can see the first beginning, the young children and the mothers. That's why I have highlighted this point, young children and their mothers, because mothers who directly actually provide the care to the child. So how to save? So what are the things like saving the newborn child lives? So we have many program schemes. We have immunization. We are promoting the institutional delivery. So all these contribute to the newborn child and make them healthy. But how these facilities and services are get affected during a disaster situation, and what are our preparation, and what action we plan to reduce the risks on such services and infrastructure. Similarly, you can see maximizing the growth of the children, which is the life cycle approach. When the child get birth and then till it develops certain age. So there are several programs and schemes which support them for their health, for their nutrition values, and also for their cognitive development. Then in this particular time, there is another important aspect is about drinking water, because when we talk about the health, so there is a significant portion which actually contribute is the drinking water and the sanitation provision. So it also talks about how to provide those safe drinking water and proper sanitation both to the mother as well as the newborn child or the child when it grows. So that is one of the sector. Then timely accessible to the birth registration. So these are all the process of a child development, life cycle development process. Then more opportunities for the early warning when the child crosses certain age like 3 to 5 years. Then we start teaching them through Anganwadi centers in the rural areas, and maybe in the urban areas the nurseries and other schools. Then coming to the last point is early care for growth and development. So it keeps on going through certain services to certain departments and certain sectors. So whether those sectors are considering the disaster risk or not, that we need to analyze. And this is what the journey start for the child-centric disaster risk reduction. So in UNICEF, in our programming, one approach we have promoted is the child risk and impact analysis. So child risk impact analysis is just similar to the vulnerability, hazard vulnerability and risk analysis we do in the disaster management planning. So it is not a different concept from that hazard risk vulnerability planning. Rather, it is focusing on the children's aspect, how the children are get affected, what are the risks to the children for any specific type of disaster, then which are the sector services which are likely to be affected in a specific disaster. So all these analysis we do through this child risk impact analysis, and it should be part of the hazard risk vulnerability analysis of any disaster management planning. So that's why the child risk impact analysis will help us to understand which sector is having the critical issues, where are the risks of that sector to a specific disaster, then what are the remedies, what are the mitigation measures we need to consider. So from this particular diagram you can understand there are few sectors like health, nutrition, was early education and social protection. So these are few sectors which actually directly help the children in development and growth. In the meantime, these sectors are also significantly impacted by natural disaster or any other disaster. So how to build that bridge to understand what are the risks to these sectors from disasters and what are the actions we need to take to reduce such risk. So this is what we do in our normal programming. And since that's why when we talk about children, and UNICEF work only on these sectors. Why? Because these are the sectors who directly influence the children development and their well-being. So here you can see in this particular stage when the children are young and the lactated mothers or the pregnant mothers. So mostly the two sectors which contribute are health and nutrition. Although there are other sectors like WAS and education have some significant role, but these two sectors are contributing a lot. So when we are saying child-centric DRR, then these two sectors need to do certain analysis to understand how their services and infrastructure are get affected by disaster and what are the action they need to incorporate in their normal programming. So this is what we try to explain. Then coming to the bottom person, when we are saying the disaster risk reduction, it is all about resilience building, resilient infrastructure, resilient services or resilient communities. You take a small example like the health services, the immunization and the maternal care or the institutional delivery, whatever the services we are providing to ensure the children's development and children's growth and their survival. So we need to consider such infrastructure, such services, and need to be resilient. And in the meantime, we also have to build the capacities of the communities where the most vulnerable children or the mothers are staying, and how they can understand from certain risk and prepare for those risks to be resilient. So these are the actions we need to consider during the young child days. Next, please. Then the next slide is the next cycle is when the child goes to the school. The boys and girls goes to the school. They do their primary education, and that time it is very much vital that there should be a continuity of their education. And when we say continuity, so we know, of course, in a disaster situation, in a country like India, or those who are facing annual disaster like flood, cyclone. So around 6 to 7 months, we are badly affected by different disaster, and during that phase, the schools gets closed. Recently, no, currently we have the biggest scenario of COVID, due to which the schools are closed since 1 year. So in this context, how we are prepared to continue these services? What are the alternatives? What are the risks, and how should we no, get over of those risks? So these things we need to plan. So here the major sector is education, because education department or the education sector, which actually provide different support and services for the continuity of the children. So how they consider DRR as one of their no objective, how they mainstream that disaster risk reduction into their programmings and into their plan of actions, so that the education system and the services should continue even if there will be any disaster situation. During this particular age also, there are huge risk of violence and exploitation to the children. So this is the age where the children get exploited, and there are certain violence also created. So then we talk about the child protection. So these two sector now we can see during this particular age. So we consider education and child protection. So how these two sector are considering the DRR aspect, whether we need to develop resilient infrastructure, or whether we need to develop our services resilient from the likelihood of the disaster, and how then we build the capacities of the community so that they can cope with their own capacities. So in this particular stage, you can see, if we analyze that what are the risk and impact on those issues, protection issues or the education related issues, so then we can identify which are the risk, how the infrastructures, the education infrastructure get affected, how the services are no discontinued, then what are the activities and actions we need to think about. So it is basically focusing on two sectors, education and child protection, and there are certain departments who are responsible. So how they consider DRR as one of their major aspect and include in their no program and planning. Next, please. Then the second age group is coming as the adolescents, which start from the age of 14 up to the age of 18. So this is the phase where no, we found the cases of child marriage, the access to education for the adolescents, because the time where a significant change in their growth and health. So there are certain issues which need to be taken care of specially, and then the adolescents' health, of course, and the adolescents' development. So all these issues we are taking care of at this particular age, and there are certain provisions for these supports. So you can see there are majorly the health sector contribute on the adolescents' growth and their health aspects. Then the protection part, where actually we provide them support, we counsel them so that they can they can actually stay safe from all these concerns. So how we can analyze the risks and the impact to those specific sectors, and what are the plans they are doing to overcome all these problems. Next, please. And then the last part is social inclusion and increase awareness. So we have seen the different age group, how the children are primarily getting support in from various sectors and various areas, and then how we can analyze the risks of disaster to those sectors and then plan. But there are also few other aspects, like we need to build the capacities, we need to develop the awareness about the child rights, so that all the stakeholders, including children, can understand their rights, and those rights should not be compromised in a disaster situation or in an emergency situation. So what are the things we need to consider, and how should we do the analysis to understand the disaster risks on the child right issues? So that is also not discussed here. Then adapting to the climate change, one of my colleague has already highlighted that climate change is one of the burning issues, and we have seen the impact of climate change, and we are also discussing about the adaptation strategies. So during this climate change adaptation strategies, how we consider the children's role and their participation, and also how climate change is having impact on the children's health, nutrition, and also the education aspects. So all these things need to be analyzed, and the respective responsible stakeholders and the department need to plan for that. Then the scaling of the social protection. We have many social protection schemes which directly benefit the children for their health support, for their education, for their nutritional support, and how these protection programs and schemes are intact in a disaster situation, or maybe how more and more social protection scheme we can introduce to address certain issues which normally faced by the children in a disaster context, that need to be advocated. So these are the I think the life cycle process through which we promote the child-centric DRR. From my experience, I would like to say that in West Bengal, actually we have developed this child's risk and impact analysis as part of the district and state disaster management planning. Why? Because if the analysis will be done at the disaster management planning at the district and state level, then obviously the actions will be fixed by the respective departments. Second is we are promoting the school safety program, which talk about the children's participation as well as their knowledge development. In the meantime, also we are developing the school safety plans. So this helps the children as well as the community to understand how disaster impact on the children and what are the action we need to take care for continuity of their education facilities. Similarly, we have developed child protection in emergency and nutrition in emergency capacity building strategy, so that the frontline workers who are working in the child protection or working in the nutrition sector can understand the disaster risk, and they can plan certain action to reduce such risk in their programming. So this is the way we actually help to promote the child-centric disaster risk reduction in various level. One more example I would like to give, when we talk about the development and their how we can involve the children in the development process and also in identify the disaster risk. So the one example is the child risks, the GPDP programming, Risk Involved Child Center GPDP programming, which we have promoted in West Bengal. And the basic objective was, when we talk about the development process in the rural area, Panchayat is the nodal body, and Panchayat normally develop the plan for their particular area. So in that component, if we can push the agenda that they need to consider the children's participation in the development planning process, and also they consider the disaster risks in the development planning. Combining these two things, we can actually find a solution at the Panchayat level, at the local level, that how should be the child-centric development process need to be done. So these are few activities we promote at various level. to mainstream the child-centric disaster risk reduction. So this is all from my side. If you have any specific queries, I am ready to answer. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Simachal, for making a nice presentation on life cycle approach to child-centric DRR. And you have also discussed about the phase-wise services required and the important sectors which is contributing to the development of the children. Here, I would like to invite the attention of all three panelists. And I have a suggestion here, and also want the reflection of all three of the panelists. Anytime what's happening is due to the disasters or any other situation, there is a mass displacement in our country. So when the families were migrating from one place to another place, most of the children's the immunization schedule is being disrupted. So in that situation, can we suggest to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to make certain technology that where we can send a message, voice message to the particular family to informing about this is the date of vaccination date, this is the vaccination date to your child, and nearest to the information of the nearest primary health center. Or in such case, when the people are not able to read, we can send a text message, or we also can send a voice message in terms when the people are having illiterate. So by using the geographical positioning system, so will it be solving our issue, or can it be the right idea for solving this issue? You got my point, sir? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Dr. Balu. Certainly, this is an important idea and feasible. Even to the extent that I have a dog, and I always get a intimation from his doctor that when is the next vaccination due. But this is a private service. Now, for sure, things will move in this direction in the country. Only bottleneck is that not everyone in the country has access to smartphones, has access to mobile phones. So our concerns are for those most marginalized. But that should not stop us from starting such a service, or attaining such benchmarks in our service delivery system. So that's a good idea, and NIDM is best positioned to send a similar this kind of advisory to the Ministry of Health, and Unicef would be more than happy to collaborate with you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for your. Yes, sir. Please.
Balu, adding to what Sarabjit sir was saying, the situation in terms at a different kind of hazard events, if it is a mass displacement, then situation calls for a different approach, whether this displacement is because of a natural hazard event, displacement due to industrial aspects, or any mega project. In case there is a migration from rural to urban areas, the situation calls for both the sides, including the parents as well as the health team, or to this matter when you say state governments. Responsibility lies at both the ends, because if you're talking about at the time of pregnancy, I think the Anganwadi workers give them entire instructions of right from the time if they are coming under service of Anganwadi, I think they are given information continuously when to do, when not to do. But sometimes cases of this kind of disasters, you tend to forget because of other trauma that you are going through. So the possibility is that in case if it is a flood, cyclone, the cyclone shelter should need to provide that service, which should be integrated as a part of our management of shelters, which is possible to do. The second is the health department and Angan Human and Child Department. What is the follow-up they have? how do we integrate these things in their departmental plans as a part of the process? Because as we see today is that many departments do not have a plan for themselves in terms of disasters. So what is the goal and what they need to work on? So this is where we can work. And the point is the with this in the country office have initiated work with Karnataka along with Hyderabad office with the Department of Panchayat Raj institution to track the migrant communities who were displaced because of the COVID-19 and lockdown. So now they are tracking down who are coming back to the semi-urban areas or to the rural areas to the panchayats, so that they know this particular community has come back and what kind of a systems to be followed and what kind of measures to be done for social protection schemes. So I think this can be taken up and would be possible, and each state government needs to respond to situation. Over.
Yeah, that's perfect, sir. Thank you so much for adding the points. There is one question here. What is your opinion about accident in Bandra? I think maybe Simachal sir or anyone can answer this question. The question was asked by Mr. Samanthan Bose. What is your opinion about accident in Bandra?
Sorry, accident in?
Bandra,
The hospital accident.
hospital accident.
Balu, I think I would respond to it.
Yes, sir, please.
Part of the panelist team. See, the situation that's what is not a something new event that has taken place in Maharashtra of the children's death in the hospital. Things have occurred in West Bengal also. Things have occurred in other states such as Telangana also. Many states experience there is death taking place of poor maintenance or fire accidents in the hospitals. So that's why there has been a continuous call from the DM professionals to work with the health department, with the medical education, medical, public health and hospitals to have their own disaster management plans and continuous review of the existing structures in terms of wiring, in terms of materials, in terms of fire extinguishers, in terms of how these people are oriented and trained. I think MHA also had issued guidelines for hospitals. NIDM has issued guidelines, NDM has issued guidelines. Somewhere it so happens that unless we see death, we don't seem to respond. That is how things are. But whereas this, from the state government, there is no proper mechanism to ensure that is for monitoring of the hospitals, especially children's hospital. For that, any hospital, we do not monitoring measurements. And secondly, most states do not have a separate DM plans for the hospitals. That is where I think there calls for a lot more dialogue within the health and the medical team. How safe private hospitals are able, some private or corporate hospitals have those measurements, but some they also come to accidents. But many of the smaller hospitals who do not have this intention of saving people but functioning as a routine hospital is where the problems are occurring. So there is a lot more debate need to take place. It's not the first time that incident has occurred. I think every year we see an accident in hospitals where children or the patients die. So I think there is need for a discussion on that.
Balu, if I may add to what Mahendra said,
Please.
I think this is a bigger issue, and thanks for this question. Whosoever has asked, excellent question. See, it's a mandate issue. How do our development institutions assume dual mandate? I mean, right now they only think that they have a mandate for doing development work. So they continue to deliver their development services in whatever good or bad way. But what is their role in risk management? in risk reduction, in being prepared. So each development institution, whether it's hospital, whether it's schools, whether it's critical infrastructure such as airport or railways or water supply or any other, each of the development function has to have a dual mandate. And I think I would love to ask a corresponding question to professor in the law college, that constitutionally, how does it work? Why? How can we ensure that the development institutions of the country also become sensitive to the risk context and be sort of or is there no need for to look towards the constitution? Is it just a practice issue? Balu, you're muted.
Professor Tesang, are you available? Dr. Desang?
Probably we can go back to him after later. Maybe you can throw some other questions if necessary.
Sure. Okay. There is one more question here. How we all are responding to street payment children focusing on DRR? How we all are responding to street children focusing on DRR?
Maybe we can give it to Simanchal. Now Mahendra and I have spoken already. So.
Yeah, see, when I spoke about the children's participation in DRR action, and we always promote that children should be part of the DRR action. So when we are saying street children, it's basically talking about the urban context, and we have several organizations who work in the urban disaster risk reduction, and of course during that urban DRR programming, we talk about various vulnerable groups, and then street children are also be part of that. But it's very difficult to actually organize the programming and programming at the urban level and make the street children part of that. However, there are certain actions like we do some competitions, some awareness activities where we invite the street children, or we organize certain programs at the you can say the urban slum areas where you can find most of these street children stay with their family or without their families, and there we try to build their capacities to understand the disaster risk as well as the day-to-day risk. So of course these are very small initiatives. It's not only UNICEF, there are different organizations who organize this type of programs, and this is the way we need to identify the platforms where we can call these street children and create the awareness among them about certain issues. We know there are certain challenges. They are illiterate. They don't have basic education. They may not understand the language you speak in DRR, but we have to be very simplify to make them understand that how different disaster situation, maybe fire, maybe cyclone, have significantly impact on their lives and survival. Then it will be really helpful for them to know to understand. And then thing is, when we are working at the urban DRR programming, we also talk about the slum areas, and we do certain micro level planning to identify the risk. That also indirectly we can say help to reduce certain risk to this urban and street children. So this is what I have experienced in some of the initiatives. Apart from that, I don't think there is any specific program where we need to analyze, and then how we can mainstream this DRR topic in such programmings. So over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Simachal, sir, for elaborately answering the question about street children and focusing on DRR. I think it's time to move now, next presentation. Now, I may invite Dr. Rajaram, sir, to discuss about a life cycle approach to CCDRR. Over to you, sir. Can I share your PPT or... let me... So now I may invite Mahendra Rajaram, sir, to...
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah. You can share the PPT, and maybe one more PPT I will share it. Try to see if I can share first. Is the
Now you are the presenter, sir. You can share.
okay.
Or you want me to share it, sir?
Before, I think I'll try to share a particular.
Yes, please, please. It's opening.
Fine. It's opening. Let. I need to remove this.
Yes, it's visible now.
Now, this one. How do I do it?
If you keep your cursor on the top of the system, there is the option for stop sharing. Please click on it. Keep your cursor on the top of the screen.
Can you see this?
Still Word file is there, sir. Still Word file is visible. Keep your cursor on the top of the screen, so there is the option for stop sharing. Once you click it, it will...
What do you think you can do from your side, if possible?
Yes, sir. You want me to share the PPT? Yeah, I will
Fine.
do it.
You do it, but I'll start off. Good afternoon to all the participants and also the panel members. I think from the big lot of things have been shared in relation to life cycle approach. You would look at life cycle approach from a perspective of child rights. Basically, the whole approach to life cycle approach for child-centric DRR is from that particular perspective. If you look at the life cycle approach, which I basically wanted to share that particular, not able.
Just I'm trying, sir. Just a minute. Sorry.
I think join.
No, I'll share it.
So the whole aspect of the life cycle approach to child DRR has got from the child perspective, but we try to look at why we need to look at life cycle approach. What Simanchal and what Sarabji was also sharing.
Is it visible, sir? Is it visible?
Visible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before start presentation, I also welcome Professor Santosh Kumar sir who is joining this program. So now Dr. Rajaram sir is presenting, sir. After that,
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. And I work at earlier with UNICEF till about a week back in DRR section. So I also worked with UNDP in knowledge management and solution exchange. So that is my basic background of working in DRR. So the approach to life science important messages. One is we do see, we have observed, we have heard data is that also sharing this. The human affected in any disaster or displacement that takes place. Globally, we see about 50 to 60% of children get affected whenever there is an. So that is one, and increasing reasons for disaster would be climate change also, and causing a lot of problems for the communities and especially children, which affects the livelihood of the parents. Parents' livelihood is affected, children automatically affected. So that is the one of the reasons that we look at life cycle approach and also the child-centric DRR. Third is children are sensitive. Disaster risk reduction is critical to break the cycles that affect women, children, and families. Sensitive, we do understand because it depends on the age of children, but also along with parents, when it goes through the trauma, impacted in many ways. And now people have started trauma management, the psychosocial counseling. The trauma can be reduced and the crisis can be overcome. And most importantly, children and youth to be part of the solution because there are many issues that they experience be experienced by the adults, and their participation becomes important at particular perspective because experiences of children or adults cannot be the same. So it is very important that they participate in the process of finding solutions. Some people, youths who are taken up the challenge. So we need to see why we need to look at that. So this we are basically focusing on child sensitive DR on CCA because as I said, 60 to 70% are women and children who are victims. Next. This is a basic data that we have from 2000. 2004 was one of the biggest would have faced, which impacted a lot of most of the coastal districts on the Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean. So we see there are, apart from the livestock or the assets that we had, which needed a lot of support mechanisms to ensure they are back. This impacted both the fishing community, the agriculture community, the livelihood, the business community, and also the administration across this in the coastal districts. Next. Next. See the impact that Uttarakhand floods had in 2013, where affected, and whenever there is an health issues, it is the children who get impacted a lot, which also leads them from dropping out from schools or not attending the learning instructions regularly because whether there is a dengue or chicken, anything that vector-borne diseases that takes place, and the children are more vulnerable because of the immunity capacity being little lower compared to a mature adult. So that is where we need to look at it. Then from protection point of view, I think the question is also raised about school children. So the protection issues which we talk about, one of the rights of the children and principles we talk about is So when we talk about it here, it's not only street children, also see children, young girls and boys married, child marriages becomes increases, child labor increases, school dropout increases. So these are the issues that also come along whenever hazard event leading to a disaster can happen to children. They can get a drought condition. Have seen states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, when there are drought conditions, there are more marriages taking place because people would like to reduce their uh, uh, trauma within the house or to see that the child can be married at the earliest. We see large number of whenever there is a drought conditions, people, children increase, school dropouts increases. So we need to look at particular perspective how our child and DRR planning takes place. Next. And this is a brief situation that we have experienced in the country from 1995 even to the latest COVID, which has been one of the impact on school children. I think the entire academic year in terms of learning has been affected, though people would have access to internet, people would have access to mobile technology, but large number of students couldn't get into education, though some of the advertising talk about mobile technology and category way of putting things that the drivers and owners are very friendly. But in many cases, children do not have access to internet facility, access to school or learning instructions. Many schools across the country, teaching faculty have innovated many things to reach out to the children. All these are on a positive side, but the whole impact has been seen that interaction has been lost, socialization has lost, physical activity lost. And globally, people are not prepared for this. So we have situations where disaster strikes out badly impacts children in their overall well-being. So this is a brief update on the status that we see across the country. Next. Next slide. Why do we focus on children, child sensitive? Yeah, basically we're trying to tackle about vulnerabilities because the families and children are already deprived, are already below poverty line. Already there is need trust and not having access to health centers or lack of representation from different communities. So these communities do not have this kind of access, already deprived of the basic services and basic will be further vulnerability further increases. Secondly, we need to look at how children legitimate needs and concerns must be addressed to achieve sustainable development. Not today, because if we see discussions in DM also is the disaster management community, where we say that $1 invested can $1 of development investment that has taken place. So if you spend $1 on preparedness, capacity building, mitigation measures, then we say about $7 of worth of uh, and people also. So this is where you need to look at how best are we supporting the future generation, how best talk about preparedness and mitigation measures so that it can reduce the impact on children and community. And thirdly, if you look at from an experience of Kerala, which emerged from 2018, it moreover it had very much clearly focused on education and health. So their participation was much higher to address many disasters and also social services. So it was able to reach to the last mile, is able to reach to the community. And the trauma was reduced to a large extent even during 2018 Kerala floods and also the continuing pandemic situation. Next. Next. We change. But the child-centric DRR from understanding the children, regular update, access and regularly update, because as I was sharing an example telling that how best the community also knows about does have information, how community is prepared, how to work on a resilience. People do not have access. In the first session, keynote address, Dr. Mr. Sarabjit, what we talk about communication, where updates are there to the communities. So we try to see how best publicly information is available and how best that they can be part of the whole process, how the community tracks down issues and progress and build resilience. Other thing is a zero D concept. We're talking about zero death and zero dropout. So the entire child-centric point of view is that there should be no deaths, even when we talk about four approaches: survival, growth, development, protection, and participation. First important is how a child can survive any kind of hazard events. And if children are in school, they should not drop out because of an hazard event that has taken place, whether it could be drought, it could be floods, it could be cyclone, earthquake, landslides. To see that how best we can ensure zero dropout. Building critical social infrastructure, because this becomes very important for coping mechanisms. In single approach, if you're talking from 0 to 18, if these teams are available or created, can have access to the community, can have access. The internet benefit has access to this. To that extent, and much higher. Coping can be one if there is no death in the family. Second is how fast the community can, the family can have social service schemes. If these two things are available, then you'll be able to reach out to the community. I think talking about earlier, safety hospital to is also from so that are implemented in places. Next. So and about Simanj was talking about wash sector, climate resilience of the wash sector, preparedness for response. So these are need to look at from a DM cycle. So about response and risk. We are talking about the important aspect is that how the water and sanitation service is available. Whether we have water when the incident occurs, because this becomes important whether school can function or learning instructions can take place. So if these things are taken care, then the response, the resilience of the community is also higher, because at one level the school takes care of children. If you have water, we ensure that there is no outbreak of epidemic outbreak, cholera, typhoid, malaria, all these things can be controlled. So this is where we try to see that how do we build resilience on water and sanitation and health aspects. And response of the community, as we're talking about it, because child-centric DRR is not at the time when a situation occurs, but how much time that takes place. And there is important aspect of convene, converge, and coordinate. This is both from the government aspect as well as from the NGO sector, civil society, academics, universities, etc. Because if people would have observed or noticed, even in 2015 Tamil Nadu floods, a lot of private sector communities, including film industries, young youths were mobilized. In Kerala, you see a lot of youths were mobilized during 2018 floods. This is possible when there is a space for everybody to participate so that the response can be effective and reduce the situation which people may face more. Next. As I said, third part of the key message, we are looking at the involvement of youth to be part of the solution, children and youth. As I said, the right to participation. We talk about survival, actions, and participations. The part youth and children will bring a new dimension to what we are trying to work with the DRR. Because in case if there are 50 to 60% of children are getting affected, and they should be part of the solution. Because as I said, their experience are different, and they would bring in a lot more ideas on what they require. So that can be better addressed. Here it also inclusiveness. We're talking about girls, boys, children with disabilities, children who do not have access to various other schemes and programs, and they should be part of it because they play critical role in survival. And if you notice, majority of our programs, whatever is designed, whether you talk about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Yuva program for adolescent girls, we all talk about that this has to be whether the Red Cross program, any program, road safety program, you want to start from the school. This only thing is, but children don't get involved in the planning and preparing of the programs, but they become part and parcel of that because we talk about they are changing agents. If they are changing agents, they should be part of the planning process. So this is where that we need to look at their participation as a very critical thing. Well, so this is the background why Unicef has looked at child-centric DRR is from this particular aspects, because some of the goals of the Unicef are that children movement to be a national and local priority is a national priority, that you work at the local and also the national level, because children faced by girls are identified and addressed, build resilient conditions for girls, boys and women, strengthen humanitarian response and recovery through capacity development. So these are the few things that I have brought from a major document with UNICEF that look at key things from girls, boys' point of view. This is where, and just try to talk about life cycle approach. I'm trying to look at whether I'm able to share that document, not this one. I'm not able to get out of this, but there is life cycle approach. As we're talking in the beginning, in the morning that we talked about, in the afternoon we talked about right from the prenatal stage, from the time the marriage takes place till the adult girls or boys who are 18, 21, in the next marriage, there is a big life cycle that takes place.
So now you may try to share your.
Yes, I'm there trying to share a file. Just so I'll try to talk about this from the rights perspective. We're talking about right survival issue. The survival, we are talking about children from the prenatal to when you're talking about, we have number of programs. The women who are part of the Anganwadi centers, we have IC program which talks about protecting the child in the womb so that the child is not affected. So, in times of disasters, as the gentleman or the person were asking questions about immunization, how do we look at it? So, the immunization needs to continue. Is available within 1 week, even if it is lapsed within 3 to 4 days, they can get the service done. The immunization can be taken place. So, safe survival is a critical thing, so that the child, when the 1,000 days, what Sarji was saying, needs to be ensured that this child, which is in the prenatal stage, the pregnancy and later born, should have access to immunization, access to good nutrition, because we also promote breastfeeding, if at least for a 6 months to 1 year. If that is the case, then the women should have proper nutrition so that the child's health is better. So it is not only looking at a child during the first 3,000 days, it is also the mother who needs to be supported so that the both mother and the child are safe and survive. So this is, and we have a lot of programs under ICDS. Anganwadi is a well-known program, which is the core of the Women and Child Development Department, and one of the highest investment that takes place, that every child that is born can in the home get sufficient immunization, nutrition aspect. If you look at the other part of under survival is also children in the Balwadis or pre-primary schools, which they need to uh, go through, which we are trying to now, the state is trying to link pre-primary school, primary school, so that children don't drop out after pre-primary center, pre-primary schools. We are talking about talking about development. Development, we are talking about school, upper primary schools, high school issues, because here is opportunity where we talk about earlier address, we talk about Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and right to education. Right to education provides that every children will have education up to 14 years, and that is one of the major support mechanisms and support that the state has provided. And we're trying to cover schooling for all children to be in school, so that our idea of zero dropout also works out. Here, development from both psychosocial development, socialization, and access to learning instructions, immunization, because immunization, even after 1,000 days, immunization also goes at a different level, different issues, but different health requirements. So that has to be taken care. So if they are in the school, it is being followed with health camps, which the school conducts it, so that right from the beginning till the child completes schooling, we talk about development, should be ensured in the life cycle approach. We have different programs. If we talk about Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Sukanya Samruddhi Yojana, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is also in a way supports the children's survival and development, because if polio, if we have some good sanitation things, then the rate of polio which we have eliminated may not happen again. So that of Sarva Shiksha, Swachhata Abhiyan, so that is there, and water cleanliness and hygiene reduces large number of health problems. Then we talk about child protection. We are talking from child marriage, abuse, child violence against children, child trafficking. All this comes under child protection. We're talking about, it could be right from the beginning of a child's birth to maybe till up to 18 years, because there are many cases children are kidnapped for adoption, or children are given sold for adoption purposes when they are born. It also depends, the children, male child, sometimes they are preferred by somebody, so they are sold. There's a poverty condition at home. And child abuse, and violence against children would increase in case of disaster. So how do we ensure that their protection takes place? And in case if their children are in shelter, do we promote child space so that adolescent girls, young girls not get abused or there's a violence against them? So child protection plays a critical aspect during disasters. So because as I stated earlier, after disaster there could be child trafficking. Families could be lured to sell the children or ensure that child getting married earlier because of the poverty conditions or the situation they are facing. So this life cycle approach needs to address these important areas, and this life cycle approach is designed in such a manner through Unicef, where we talk about survival, we talk about development, we talk about the protection, and talk about participation. So these four aspects are divided between prenatal to the child or the girl or the boy cross the age of 18 years. At each sector, at each phase of life, there is a separate support mechanisms to be ensured, and the state has got that support mechanisms. If we talk about children below 5 years, we have the Women and Child Development, which takes care of it. We talk about schooling from age of +5 to age of 18 years, or say, depending on each state, we have a school board, we have CBSE, ICSE, which supports that education. Then we have about a couple of years back, we had this skill development program, but we had a skill development program and different name, but we today have a Skill India program, which also ensure the child who do not want to continue collegiate education, go for technical education from age of 16 years to diploma or polytechnic. And all this is based on the understanding of the child development over the years from 0 to 18 years. So we have different departments looking at it during a different cycle, different phases of the child. So this is in the context of the life cycle approach that UNICEF and all the departments that UNICEF is interacting has a particular role to play. And most importantly, we'd like to look at, if you have time, being law students or people from law background, the UN Convention on the Rights of Children, Rights of a Child, talks about two different aspects. One is the Article 6 and Article 12, which talks about where reinforcing educating child in disaster and empowering them, talks about survival, development and life. Article 12 talks about participation. So it gives a good understanding from CRC perspective. We need to look at life cycle approach right from also the DM cycle. Disaster management cycle also talks about, if you look at preparation, response, recovery, mitigation, all this also is linked to life cycle approach. During emergencies, where we talk about response, we ensure that no child is injured or no child is expired or death takes place for the child. So we need to ensure all our response mechanisms are there. If you have to reduce the trauma onto the recovery stage, because psychosocial counseling can be one of the recovery phase activity that can take in place, can ensure your multi-purpose cyclone shelters are functioning well. How do we ensure housings are better, or how do we ensure in case of cyclone, earthquake, what kind of measures that we need to take, then so that child do not get affected. Then preparation, how do we develop our communities to prepare well for any kind of disaster. So this is what we try to place before the group, so that if any questions are there, we can always go for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Overall, in your presentation, you have discussed about the disaster impact on children over past 2 decades and how this child life cycle approach helps for child-centric DRR. Thank you so much, sir. There is one question for you from Zalinder. He has raised that what kind of disaster risk management activities should be done at school level?
Fine. I think Shailendra in terms, if we talk about the North India, the government had also introduced school safety project so that the children and the teaching faculty are able to respond to a situation, especially from the perspective of earthquake. But if you go beyond that, UNICEF has been promoting comprehensive school safety program, which one of the successful models we see is Bihar, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal as such, to large extent Gujarat, and they have been participating in the whole process. At the school level, we are talking about the stakeholders and the teaching faculty and the people, the schools, workers. These people's safety is important. So how do we prepare them? What kind of communications to be given to them so that they are aware? What kind of drills can take place in case of fire accidents? What kind of mock drills to take place so that if there's earthquake, how do they respond to it? Then in case of fire accident, how do they respond? If there's a food poisoning in the midday meal, how do they respond? Because most of the if you are not oriented or trained to these kind of situations, our response our response is gets delayed. We do see an example when there was a food poisoning meal program. The teachers and the midday meal workers ran away from the school, fearing the village people will beat them. But if they have been trained or oriented, concern mechanisms or the leaders to help them out. So this comprehensive school safety program for different kind of hazard events, fire, food poisoning, health issues, earthquake incidents. So there's a good program by the Government of India, National School Safety Program. There are also guidelines issued. There are manuals available which the teachers can use them. And respective states, through the State Disaster Management Authority, they could intervene in the schools as a part of the preparedness. And recently, the Government of India has also made it very clear to the state governments 10% of their money that is allotted by the state government for disaster management to be utilized for capacity building, which is mandatory now, so that the states can, or the education department or schools can approach SDMA and request for these kind of drills to take place in the school. They could given IEC materials, they could be given mock drills to be conducted in the schools. Each of the school, in one of the comprehensive school safety project which has been done by UNICEF, it also identifies teachers as the focal points. About 2 teachers are identified as focal teachers to help the classrooms. There are some every Saturday for Bihar, every Saturday there is a program taking place in every school, whether it be orientation, training, drills, or class. So this is a way we build coping up mechanisms that all programs can be taken up depending upon giving priority depending upon this geographical and the incident that the school would have faced. Over.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Participants, you are requested to post all your questions related to this session in the chat box. I'm repeating, if any questions you are having, kindly post in chat box. Mr. Sarjit sir, would you like to add any point here? Mr. Sarjit sir, would you like to add any point here?
Yeah, so the point I think which probably requires little reflection amongst duty bearers, amongst civil society organizations, UN, NIDM, and others, is that, see, children, like remember the earlier question on street children. Now, where are the street children? And we know that they are all over the city, all over in the urban areas, but it is difficult to pinpoint exactly 1 or 2 or 3 places where they are. So when we have the nature of the risk is extensive, when the nature of the risk is extensive, the best way to respond is to build a platform approach. which I think my colleague Simachal also alluded to, that we got to build um, some kind of a partnership which goes beyond the mandated agencies. Hmm? Not only mandated agencies, but civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, and other sort of individuals who would like to work on this issue, including some very non-traditional actors such as police, traffic police, railway police, child line. So all kind of actors need to come together to. So the success is in creating a platform. So I think it's very important that we work on children's issues with a platform approach. Number two, children's risk are time critical. You also mentioned about that. And they can be addressed only if we anticipate. And that holds true for any other risk as well. But until unless we anticipate them and do anticipatory planning, we will not be able to launch a timely response. So it's very important that we our development actors, administrators, particularly at district level, start anticipating the problems and do anticipatory planning. And there are a number of good uh, opportunities for doing anticipatory planning. For example, in the district planning, in the district disaster management plans, in the school safety plans, in the hospital safety plans, and so on and so forth. Many things can be addressed without fail. So this is where I think visibility of children, visibility of women and children in planning is an important issue. And anticipatory planning with our women and children in focus, I think, can solve a lot of problems, not only for children and women, but for the wider sort of society. Over.
Yeah. Thank you, Sabjit sir. Now, a last question to Rajaram sir. It's raised by Mr. Vishal. Who is authorized person or agency to conduct evacuation and mock drills in schools? And who are supposed to monitor this? It's about conducting mock drills and evacuation in schools. Who is authorized to conduct? Am I audible, sir?
Sir, I was while conducting mock drill or other activities, it is good for the education department to get in touch with the fire and emergency services or disaster response team, because they are trained and they can be a good source of resource team that could be available. Or the education department or the school needs to discuss with the respective state disaster management authority to identify resource person who can those mock drills and give them training. In this, sometimes there may be people who say, I am trained from there, but in case some kind of during mock drills, if accidents occur, then nobody wants to take responsible. So it would be better that they have a discussion when they want to conduct mock drills, fire drills. I think it's better they need to speak to the team such as fire and emergency, state disaster response force, it is available, or they can also speak to NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, because two things they do, they also keep visiting the states and start identifying some spots such as for their exercise known as familiarization activity. So whenever they about 10 to 1 week to 10 days they stay in a particular locality, so they can be contacted in case that they have planned, so that they can conduct those kind of drills in the school also. And better, most important thing is if they can discuss with SDMA or DDMA, Disaster District Authority, they would give a proper guideline and also support in those activities. Oh. Verbal.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. A last question to Sabjit sir. It is specifically mentioned for him. Is there any case study to related to role of children in DRR, and also guide me on how can I include or work with children and community resilience building. This is two subjects are raised by Sardar Ramesh. Please tell us about some case studies on the role of children in DRR. Also guide me on how can I include or work with children. This is the community resilience building.
Thank you. There are plenty of case studies. Earlier, Mahendra also mentioned that part of school safety programs across states, not only here or there. There are almost every state has very good school safety programs, and if I'll be more than happy to share some of the case studies from our programs, which I'll send it to you, which you can share with Ramesh. Um, the best place to start working with children is in the school, and I would suggest that if even if you have intentions to ensure that children participate in community level planning, the starting point should be in the school, because that is where you children are most accessible. They relate to that space, and they can work on reducing risk within the school. They can practice, they can address some of the risk in the school, and once they learn something, they can come out and address more risk at the family level, at the community level, and so on and so forth. So with children, the best place to start is in the school. Then the next level is to ensure that children carry those messages to their families, and then of course once they are empowered enough, they can participate at community level risk resilience planning and implementation, and particularly the adolescents and the young people, youth, particularly boys and girls, can contribute to a lot of leadership on for disaster risk reduction. uh, Balu, I'll share various case studies with you.
Yeah,
We also have an evaluation of one of the very sort of old school safety program in Bihar. So that evaluation also I'll share with you, which you can share with Ramiz and others.
surely, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Subjit sir. Now it's my immense pleasure to invite Professor Santosh Kumar sir, who is a professor and head Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center and Governance Inclusive DRR Center.
Okay, Balu.
Yes, sir, please. Over to you, sir.
Now, thank you very much for inviting me, and also saying some of the points which we wanted to share that you have already covered. So that is one thing, and but important thing is that how we can ensure that our future generation is capacitated enough, the system, the institutions, and the framework working together in capacitating the kind of children who are likely to fall into emergency. Like we have seen this particular COVID-19, and along with the COVID-19, there are several disasters happened in the during this period. And children always be seen as a vulnerability that is there, is the fact and the reality. But how they can also find certain place in the policy formulation, their experiences, which I always say that had it been a story of 1918 pandemic would have shared with us or our generation, or maybe a generation, couple of generations, then probably the things would have been different. But they also practiced a mask. They also practiced social hygiene, and they also practiced many other things which we are practicing today. But this were never told in any of the formal places, like whether in a school or in the colleges during our childhood. So we carried that risk all through without any capacity. So this particular attempt, which we are trying from the child-centric DRR, is this capacitating future generation if 10 years from now, if any such or big disaster or calamities happen, then they are capable enough to handle themselves and also take care of the society. But so far, we don't find, but like we say that CRY is working, Save the Children is working, UNICEF is working, CDRR now also started working. But idea is to that the population is so huge in our country for the children itself, if you take, and those who are entering into from say the childhood to the adolescence and adolescence to the adulthood. So the three stages which we say that life cycle approach, which was just shared. So that we see that how institution like ours, institution like other institutions can get engaged as we are working and we are trying very hard to take this to the communities. Our answers should go to the community and community feel empowered and it becomes a behavioral change and in the total social construct so that they can take up such kind of issues in a more organized way. So this much I wanted to say that from NIDM side, that I could see the question answer session and Rajaram was handling that. And Sarabjit has also mentioned many of the ideas. So probably this would help. Okay. So thank you very much to all of you and Balaji too.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us in this program. Sabjit, sir, or any other panelist, if you have any points, you can add. Otherwise, with your permission, let me go ahead with the vote of thanks. Any other point would like to add from Simachal, sir, or Sabjit, or anybody?
Thank you, Balu.
Yeah. Fine. Okay, sir.
Thanks, Balu. Just a closing thought for Professor Santosh, and thank you, Santosh ji, for joining us. Earlier, we were sort of brainstorming that how can we ensure that development institutions pick up a dual mandate, not only development, but also their responsibilities to be prepared, invest in risk and resilience. Because we had the professor from law school and we were discussing whether should it be tried through a constitutional mechanism or is it a practice issue? And I think I'm not expecting any right answer, wrong answer, but
Hello.
Is it Professor Sevang?
Yes.
No, all are muted here, but how nice is
Am I audible now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're but let him complete.
We can hear you, sir.
From constitutional perspective, you said that how to address the issue. The Constitution itself, I said earlier, is the mother of all laws. So any laws which to the enforcement has to draw its power itself. But Article 15.3, which in addition to the women, issue. That kind of very much experience that vast number of people in the country and equally the children population is high. So they would like to address the issues firsthand, but you know that like funding and all those kind of things. We know that. That is why we have directed goals. And say there is no so in the first already of the human population lot. So that way, a lot of help, like the UNICEF knows very well that globalization has helped a lot to and action to a large extent, because now every country has opened, like it has got an open economy. Every the enforcement agencies, or mostly the policy making, the global institutions like the UN with all its agencies are very much like watching what's going on in the country. But only thing that is very much been a big drawback is, as everybody knows, the US, which after the COVID
Dr. Sewang,
going on.
Dr. Sewang, your voice is completely breaking due to poor network. Hello.
Image of being sensitive human rights.
Yeah, please continue. Your voice is breaking here due to poor network. We are unable to hear you. Have you done, or would you like to continue, sir?
Same to you all. Same to you all. Anyway, at least
Yeah. Thank
countries and thank you very much. Hello, yes, I am.
Thank you, Dr.
Finished, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. Sabjit sir, you have any reflection here?
Okay. Thank you, Balu. And I think we can only now let the participants go home and enjoy the evening. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Yeah, thank you. So, on behalf of NIDM and the Sikkim Law College, I would like to thank, first of all the participants who have joined actively in this program, and my sincere gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal sir, Executive Director, NIDM, and I also extend my gratitude to Dr. Sewang, Principal, Government Sikkim Law College, and also the coordinator Dibankar for joining with us. And my sincere thanks to Sabjit sir, who is a disaster risk and emergency specialist from UNICEF, and also my sincere thanks to Simachal Patnaik, and also my sincere thanks to Mr. Rajaraman sir for given all your valuable time and made a wonderful presentation in this webinar. And my final thanks goes to Professor Santosh Kumar sir for who is guiding us in this all this CCDR endeavor. Thank you so much to all. Let me end the program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you from Sikkim Government Law College to all in the NDIM and UNICEF. Thank you very much personally.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone. The feedback link is shared in the chat box. The participants who are having minimum 80% attendance will receive the certificate within 15 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you.